You know, niggas gotta get their priorities together. Got their mind on the wrong things, spending their money in the wrong way.
Trapaholics, real trap shit.
Say you need that car with the rims and a trunk, just like Jim. It's more than life. Yeah.
I'm telling you. Talk to him.
Say you need that LV bag with the belt and the hat.
That's all you got though.
It's more than life. Yeah.
Talk to him. Real.
Say you wanna turn up at the club, like some bottles, impress them girls. It's more than life.
Fucking everybody.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Saints and Appetizers podcast. And who dat? And this evening we have some more actually not appetizers, but we're back with some main course, and I'm talking about the Saints' first victory of the 2025 season. They were finally able to secure a win this year, and that being a 26-14 victory over the New York Giants at home. So the Saints are now sitting at 1-4, and just a quick thought on that is that game was so fun to watch. I mean, I don't know how you can have the only way you couldn't have had fun watching that game is obviously if you're a Giants fan, or if the Saints still got the five turnovers and figured out some way to lose. But luckily, they were able to secure the win, a 12-point win, so an impressive win at home. But before I get delve too deep in that, I want to shout out a new subscriber. I'm just shouting you out again because I know the original post that you commented on and the video you liked and you said that you subscribed after was actually a main course video. It was the Saints pre-show for the Giants game, and I already shouted you out once on an appetizer show of a UFC 320 podcast. But I just want to shout this person out one more time because I appreciate all the subscriptions, the follows, the likes, the comments. Like that's what keeps me going. So I just want to appreciate the people that I guess apparently appreciate me. So I just want to shout out the Situation 716. I appreciate you with the comment and letting me know that you're a new subscriber. So I just wanted to shout you out. The Situation 716. I really appreciate that. So now then, let's get into this Saints win. We hadn't heard that in a while. It's been like nine games since the Saints won a game, and it was all the way back like December or sometime like back in December or November of last year where they beat the Giants again. It was the Giants that time as well. So it seems like if the Saints want to have a winning season or make the playoffs, they just need to play the New York Giants every week. But anyways, let's get into this. So can I get a menu? And the first thing I want to say is I hated the way this game started. Apparently, the Saints won the coin toss, and I don't know what thought went through Kellen Moore's head, thinking that it was a good idea for the Saints to take the ball first and not receive it in the second half. I understand. I understand like the thought behind it, like the logic behind it. Logic behind it was to start fast, go down, score, whether it's 3 points or a touchdown, and try to build a lead and try to put pressure on rookie quarterback Jackson Dart. But that didn't work at all. They ended up they maybe got converted like one first down or maybe went 3 and out. So you just blew an opportunity there, and then you're just giving the Giants an extra possession and giving them the ball first in the second half. So I hated the way that started, and then I legitimately thought this game was over after the first 2 drives by the Giants because the Saints were getting called with pass interference. Kool-Aid McKinstry was getting big boxed out and bodied by the New York Giants tight ends, and Theo Johnson came down with two touchdowns uh, in like the first quarter of the game, came down with two touchdowns, and yeah, the Giants were able to storm out quick to a 14-3 lead. And I mean, after that point, with how the Saints defense was going and how the refs were calling really tight with like pass interference, there was a really bad one, I think, on that second touchdown drive by the Giants. There was a really bad pass interference call on Kool-Aid McKinstry, where it was like literally a bang bang type of play, like where it should have just been registered as a pass deflection, not pass interference. And like later in the game, you see the New York Giants secondary defenders doing like exactly the same thing, and nothing being called on them. So just with that and how the game was going, and the Giants being up 14-3, hell, I was texting my buddy who's a Raiders fan, a Raiders fan who around I think around the same time the score was pretty much the same. It was like 14-0 or 13-0 for them, and I was just texting back and forth that I thought the game was over. I thought it was over at that point. Who would have known that the Saints would end up shutting the Giants out from there and having four consecutive forcing four consecutive turnovers, and then turnover on down on the New York Giants' final drive and their last six drives of the game. Just wild. You just can't predict that. You just can't make that kind of stuff up. But it was exciting getting the multiple fumbles. It started out with the fumble on was it Sterling Shepard to end the half. No, Darius Slayton. Demario Davis forced uh, a fumble on him right before the half, and you had Johnny on the spot and Jonas Sanker picking it up and getting a good return out of it, putting the Saints in position to actually score a touchdown and take the lead going into halftime for once. They ended up, yeah, going into halftime, up 16 to 14. So that was pretty exciting. I keep thinking about like different plays like that, and Spencer Rattler getting his first win, and I makes me always go back to thinking to Steve Young's first Super Bowl win as the starting quarterback, how he's like, take the monkey off my back. And that's kind of what this feels like. It kind of feels like that with the Saints getting their first win, having their first offensive lead of the game. Spencer Rattler getting his first win as a starting quarterback for the Saints. So just get that monkey off. Somebody get that monkey off my back is what I'm thinking when I hear all those things that have been broken now that the Saints have finally broke through with the win. Spencer Rattler's broke through with the win, and they actually had like 15 or more minutes. May have been even more than that. Yeah, I think they had to have had the lead for at least 30 minutes, because they took the lead into the halftime, and then they never gave up the score then. So the Saints have actually had like the lead, an offensive lead, and had the ball while having the lead for 30 plus minutes now this season, after not having it at all and only having the lead in a game for like 3 minutes, which they gave up, didn't keep the lead, giving it back to in week one to the Cardinals. But so we mentioned the Darius Slayton one, so that was big. And then you had Jackson Dart just giving it up on a scramble play. He just literally like dropped it, and Cam Jordan was able to jump on it. And then you had the one that got me the most pumped was the fumble by Cam Scadaboo. It was punched out by Brian Bresee, and then it was picked up by Jordan Howding and returned for like what was it, like 82 yards. So that was really exciting. Like that was kind of just trying to pile on some points and distance yourself from the Giants with plays like that. And I've always liked Jordan Howding, so Justin Reed going out with looked like a mild concussion, because he after he went out and got diagnosed with it, he was back on the sidelines like celebrating with his teammates and stuff. So it must not have been anything too serious. But him getting shook up, got to see Jordan Howding a little bit more, and he was able to make a big play and score a touchdown there. And as the Giants were kind of on their way to trying to score a touchdown there in the red zone of the Saints. So a big play, taking points away from them and giving points to the Saints. So like almost like a 12-point swing, if they were able to get a touchdown there, but instead it was the Saints that got the 6 points, and then obviously the extra point to get the 7 points there. So those were the three fumbles, and then you had Kool-Aid McKinstry had a breakout game, and we mentioned him early. He was struggling a little bit earlier against, what was that, Theo Johnson, the tight end for the New York Giants. Got bodied out a couple times by him, giving up some touchdowns in the red zone, and then also got called for a pass interference call early in the game. That was kind of a touchy, kind of a iffy call there, but there were quite a few iffy calls throughout this game. But man, he really tightened it down and was able to pick Jackson Dart off, intercept Jackson Dart on two of his last three drives of the game. So he was able to add also a pass deflection that was in the end zone as well. He knocked a pass away from a receiver. It was either on third or fourth down, knocking away a pass deflection. So he had Kool-Aid McKinstry. He had 4 total tackles, 3 solo, 3 pass deflections, and the 2 interceptions. So Kool-Aid McKinstry, who had has had a bit of a rough season to start. Looked like he may have had a breakout game there, but we'll have to see if he can improve on that, because it's hard to really judge how good of a game that was when you're playing the Giants, and you're playing the Giants without their best offensive weapon and their best wide receiver in Malik Nabers. I assume if the Giants would have had Malik Nabers on Sunday, that he would have caught a couple more passes, and probably some of those plays he would have made probably would have been on Kool-Aid McKinstry. But I guess we'll never know that until maybe the Saints play the Giants again with a healthy Malik Nabers. But anyways, let's get just onto the couple stats here, and then we'll get to our MVPs and hot takes and picks and scores and everything. So once again, kind of a similar game for Spencer Rattler. He throws it 30 plus times, but he does a good job not turning it over, no interceptions, and tries his best to avoid sacks, especially in closer games. But his average was up a little bit in this game. Instead of it being sub 5 or just above 5 yards per play average, he was it was actually 7.5, so it was respectable. That's kind of where you want it to be, around 7 to 8. And anything above 8, is like really really good. But he was 21 for 31 for 225 yards, 7.5 average, a touchdown, and the big stats are no interceptions, no sacks, and no fumbles. And had a QBR of 61.1 and a quarterback rating of 99.5. So Spencer Rattler had a respectable day. You could say the numbers are a little bit skewed because he had such a big play to Rashid Shaheed. He had the 87-yard touchdown bomb to him. But I mean, that's what we've been missing. You just need to sprinkle in a couple of those plays into the passing day of Spencer Rattler, and then you're looking at respectable quarterback numbers. So love that. And with Spencer Rattler, you just want to see more growth and improvement, and that's kind of what it seems like week to week. It's just small things here and there where it looks like he's getting a little bit better, but definitely the big one is the average, finally hitting a deep bomb downfield, and then just the average, that 7.5 average. Even though I know majority of that's coming from the 87-yard touchdown, but still it's not nice to see. And then Taysom Hill and Foster Monroe actually came back, which I'm blown away by that. I'm just blown away that Taysom Hill came back from an ACL injury and surgery in 10 months, and Foster Monroe came back from ACL injury and surgery in 9 months. So that just blows me away. That makes me feel old, honestly, thinking like back when I first started watching football and was following injury reports and players with knee injuries and stuff. Like either you were done, your career was over after a serious knee injury, or you're gonna miss an entire year, and then you probably aren't even gonna be 100%, or maybe you'll never be 100%, but it'll take for you to get back to what you have left, and you would take almost 2 years of recovery. But now you got guys coming back in 9 months, and they're fine. They're perfectly fine. And the coaching staff must have had quite a bit of confidence in Taysom Hill and Foster Monroe's knee, because they had Taysom Hill on passing downs, had him running the ball, had him as a protector on 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 punts, and then they had Foster Monroe in there playing tight end and blocking on the end of the line. So the players, Spencer Rattler, Foster Monroe, and the coaches and the team must be pretty confident in their knees, because I was not confident that they were going to come back the first week that they'd been designated to start practicing again. I thought it was going to be maybe two, maybe 3 weeks, or maybe if the Saints lost the next three games, of what, against the Giants, the Patriots, and the Bears, I would think maybe they just put them on season-ending IR. Like, what's the point of them coming back? So that is awesome. That really makes this team worth watching even more. Like, the Saints don't have a lot of watch value because they're not the greatest team in the world to watch, because they're not going to win a bunch of games, but they're fun to watch because they got a lot of young, interesting potential talent on the team. And then you got players that people love, like Taysom Hill coming back. The only thing that we really need to make this to where it's just like I'm just wanting to roll in to sundown. I just want to watch the Saints, and I want to see my guys make some play. We need Chase Young to be healthy, and if he can be healthy and we not get any more real serious injuries, and we can go into next week against the Patriots pretty much fully healthy, on top of having a Chase Young, and then you got Taysom Hill and Foster Moreau still their knees still holding up. Man, it's just fun to go watch and just see what they can do. But yeah, the Taysom Hill, Foster Monroe news got me off track a little bit. But I was just saying about Taysom Hill in the passing game. Man, it shows you how Kellen Moore is already designing plays and already trust Hill to throw the ball downfield, because on third down it was like a third and medium. They brought Taysom Hill in, and you usually got Taysom Hill back there. It's usually just like a quarterback draw or a quarterback run, direct snap to the quarterback, and he's usually running. But and they had him throwing on third down, and a pretty crucial third down. The game was still in close. The Giants were still in the game at that point, and he completed one of one for 19 yards and a first down, and just QBR doesn't really mean a lot off of just one throw. It's 25.1, but the quarterback rating was 118.8. So nice to see Taysom Hill doing pretty much everything. Seeing him passing, seeing him running, seeing him on special teams. That was great. All right, now then, on to the Saints rushing game. If we're talking about really kind of some of the negatives for the Saints, because can't be really too hard on the defense at all. After their first two drives, they were elite. They were like as good as you can be on defense. But we're going to talk any kind of bad about the Saints offense. It was the running game really just couldn't seem to get going there, but they didn't really have to all that much with getting points off of big plays on through the passing game, and big plays on defense, setting you up with good field position. But yeah, didn't have great numbers running the ball. Had a Kendra Miller had 10 carries for 41 yards, and with a 4.1 average, no touchdowns, and just a long of 11. Kamara had only 8 carries for 27 yards, which is a 3.4 average, no touchdowns, along of 11. And then Spencer Rattler had 6 carries for 21 yards with a 3.5 average, no touchdowns, and a long of 11. And then Taysom Hill didn't have like really impressive numbers, but they ran it with him several times. But he was just had 6 carries, but he lost some yards, -1 with a -0.2 average and just a long of 2. And in those 2 runs, and some of those couple 6 runs there, one of them he was able to pick up a first down on 3rd down. And then kind of at the end of the game, it was one of the Saints' last possessions. They tried to pick up like 2 yards on 4th down, 3rd or 4th down, and you could kind of see that Taysom Hill he's not 100%. That knee's not 100% because he doesn't seem to have like the same explosiveness not going straight ahead, but side to side, because you see that he still got that great vision when running those direct snaps to the quarterback, that he knows like where the hole is opening up and where his blocking is opening up. But on some of those runs where it was on 3rd and 4th down, you could see him trying to like kind of slide kind of to the right or slide to the left, trying to find that opening in the defense, and he just wasn't fast enough getting over there. And on some of those plays, it was only 1 or 2 yards that he was needing to pick up. So you're just kind of times a little frustrating wanting him just to go straight ahead because it just doesn't seem like he's got the mobility side to side. But still, seeing Taysom Hill in there and picking up 2 really crucial first downs, one on the ground, and then obviously that 19-yard completion he had. It was just fun. It's fun, makes the Saints even more enjoyable to watch, but they were already getting pretty enjoyable just off of the young talent and the potential that we're seeing this, and even some of the growth in Kellen Moore. That was the running game. And then in the receiving game, you had Rashid Shaheed, who had some nice plays in this game. Had 4 catches for 114 yards, which was a 28.5 average, a touchdown for which was an 87-yard touchdown bomb off of 5 targets. But he was able to pick up another 3rd down in this game. And then at the end of the game, I think it was on the same drive where the Saints were trying to run the clock down. It was like a 4th and 5, and Kellen Moore went ahead and decided to throw it, and Rashid Shaheed was able to slide down on a quick slant and pick up the first down. But then the Saints, I think, went 3 and out went 4 and out after that, which ended with the Taysom Hill just came up just an inch short, just a foot short or something, picking up the first down there. And I actually think that was a 3rd down, and then they kicked the field goal and missed, but it would have only put them up 15 anyway, so it didn't really change a lot. The Giants still, if they were able to score a touchdown and 2-point conversion, still would have been able to tie. And then defense, you had Pete Warner was your leader in tackles with 11 total, five solo, with 1 quarterback hit, and Demario Davis had a fumble before halftime, but had 10 total tackles, 7 solo, with 1 pass deflection. And we mentioned Kool-Aid McKinstry having the big game in the secondary with multiple pass deflections and multiple interceptions. And then Cam Jordan had 3 total tackles, 3 solo, and then had a quarterback hit and recovered that fumble that Jackson Dart basically just gave to them. And let's see, Terrell Burgess only has one assisted tackle, but had a huge pass deflection in that game. It was I think the score was 16-14 for the Saints, and the Giants had it like right at midfield, and it was like 1st and 10 or 2nd and 10, and they did a flea flicker, and it worked. It was perfectly executed besides completing the pass. The receiver was wide open, and Terrell Burgess was able to keep his composure and get down there and throw his arms up without contacting the receiver, and that just completely just blew up that play for the Giants. And that was there's just so many plays that just stole the momentum and just ripped the heart out of the New York Giants' chest off of either the turnovers or plays that they weren't able to make. And then just the only other real one to highlight here is Carl Granderson. You got to be Phil for him and be upset for him because he had 6 total tackles, 3 assists, and one one tackle, one quarterback hit. But he should be sitting at the second in the league in sacks with 5.5. But he was just absolutely robbed on one of those last drives of the New York Giants where he came absolutely free, blazing free, and was able to get a sack on Jackson Dart, where he just literally just shoved him in the back and pushed him to the ground. Like he didn't even like wrap him up and like fall on him. Like what, just 10, 15 years ago, a blind side hit like that on a quarterback, the defender is not only destroying them with how hard they're hitting them from behind, but they're also like wrapping their arms around completely around the quarterback so they can't brace themselves when they fall, and they're going to slam all their weight down onto them. So that now they're calling what players do now, where it's literally just like two-hand touch to push them to the ground, and they're calling that roughing the passer, is just ridiculous. How many quarterbacks survived a 16-game season in the playoffs with how they used to get hit, like off the kind of hits that you saw even just kind of Drew Brees when he tore his shoulder up when he was with the Chargers, or that defensive tackle that for the 49ers that landed on him in one of his, I think maybe in the 2019 season. So that wasn't, but that was flagged for the body weight laying on him that started off as a bruised rib, and then it started out as like one broken rib, and then before you knew it, it was like hell, half of his ribs, like he had 6 or 7 ribs broken. I remember the news reports for that slowly leaked out. So that's a defense, but yeah, that's upsetting for Carl Granderson not being able to be right there in the mix for possibly a defensive player of the year. You know, I don't know how many defensive player of the year awards are given out to players on losing teams, but still having such impressive numbers. You know, 5.5 sacks, and it's just week 5, which it should be. I've heard some people say like talk about maybe the league maybe giving him his sack back, but when it comes to the Saints, I don't see that happening. When it comes to bad calls, the league just kind of brushes it off their shoulders. There was a lot of people back after the NOLA no call wanting the game to be restarted with the Saints having a first down after the receiver was it Tommy Lee Lewis, after he got knocked down on that play, like restart the game from that point. But of course, they're not going to do that, so they're not going to give Carl Granderson his sack back. But hopefully, if it comes down to like the Saints with his incentives or something, say he ends up having like 9.5 sacks at the year, and there's some like incentive in his contract where he could make like another 500,000 or maybe even $1 million if he has double-digit sacks. Hopefully, the Saints remember this game and just give it to him. Just give it to him, because that's just absolute garbage. And that happening in the game, that play, that bad call, and then Taysom Hill not being able to pick up the first down at the end of the game kind of took a little bit of the life and excitement out of this game. Definitely the crap call, roughing call, but even Taysom Hill, that would have just set the Superdome would have exploded if Taysom Hill was able to pick up the first down there, and pretty much would have ended the game there. But yeah, that was disappointing. And then obviously just a terrible roughing call. And then no one really did anything in the kicking game. Just one return for 18 yards for Kendra, and then one return for 9 yards for Phileas Jones. And then the Saints never really got an opportunity to return any punts. And then Blake Groupie, just he's got the yips or something. I don't know. It doesn't seem like the Kellen Moore and the Saints coaching staff is really in a rush to replace him or anything. But man, just he I think he has the worst kicking percentage in the league this year, and he's missed what 6 kicks already this year. Like the ones that are 50 yards plus don't really bother me too much, but it's when they're under 50 yards. So he missed what, a 52-yarder, and the last one at the end of the game, which would have put the Saints up 15, was just a 46-yarder. You can't be missing 50 and under uh, field goal kicks, and especially not in your home stadium, which is climate controlled, a dome. Like there's no reason for with the familiarity of the dome. Like there's no reason you shouldn't be missing kicks that are under 50 yards. So it's frustrating. I just the saga of Blake Groupie and waiting to see if the Saints ever decide to make a move with that to replace him. Or I've heard some people maybe thinking that it's more the snapper and the holder than it is Blake Groupie, which I can agree with that a little bit. I hadn't really noticed it all that much with the holder, but I have there were a couple of the field goals that he attempted. Looked like the snap was a little bit high, like the holder had to kind of go up high to get it, then to put it down, and just a little things like that. And the snap, hold, kick motion, all that is just being off just a little can lead to misses, especially ones that are 50 plus. But still, you can't be missing 46-yard field goals in your home stadium. And then Kaya Kroger, wasn't any good either. He was just 2 for 83, but they were both like shanked, and they what choked up like around the Giants like 40-yard line or so, 35 40-yard line, like and he had just one of 51 yards, no touchbacks and no inside the 20. It felt like definitely the first 3 quarters or so of this game, the Giants felt like they started like every single drive, like at the 35 at their 35-yard line or better, either off of the bad punts or the Saints not having real good kickoff coverage. The coverage unit's not very good. I don't know if Blake Groupie's worried about not getting in the landing zone because he had some that dropped at the 21-yard line, giving you 40-yard penalties, or what. But that doesn't seem like the coverage unit's all that great either. That Saints really kind of dodged the bullet with getting all the turnovers because the Giants had great field position this entire game. If I was to guess, their average starting field position in this game was either 30 or 35-yard line, while the Saints early in the game their starting field position was around the 15 or the 20. So that the Giants weren't able to capitalize on that. More was definitely a big hindrance, and on top of the turnovers was why they lost. All right, so that's all the stats. We've gone over that. Let's get into my MVP picks, and then who the players of the game on offense, defense, and secondary really turned out to be. So I picked Alvin Kamara to be my MVP for this game because I felt with this with this such a good defensive line of the Giants with Kayvon Thibodeau, Brian Burns, Abdul Carter, Dexter Lawrence. I thought that Alvin Kamara would maybe find a little bit of room on the ground, but I thought he was going to find more room through the air. I thought he was going to maybe catch some of these quick swing passes and screens, trying to slow down the pass rush a little bit, which the Saints offensive line did great against. For them to have done so good and not to have allowed a sack. And I think PFF shows that Talisi Fuaga and Kelvin Banks Jr. only allowed like one pressure the entire game. Is just amazing because that was one of my big fears going into this game was the Giants' front seven. But I mean, you can have the greatest front seven in the world, but if your secondary is absolute trash, dumpster juice, it doesn't really matter. And the Saints were able to take advantage of that, but they did still do a good job stopping the run because they weren't able to run very much. But Alvin Kamara didn't do quite as much through the air either. So I was banking on Alvin Kamara having 100 scrimmage yards and a touchdown, but he ended up only having 27 yards rushing and 28 yards receiving and no touchdowns. But he had like one or two catches. I think he had one catch, like I was on one of those Texas routes, uh, option routes, like over the middle, where he picked up a first down on a big first down and got hit pretty hard on that play. But yeah, that was probably the best play Kamara made. But yeah, he didn't even come close to 100 yards from scrimmage and didn't have a touchdown either. But the true player of the game would definitely be Rashid Shaheed, finally getting off and getting loose and getting deep with the 87-yard touchdown. But he was also able to pick up a first down on third down and a first down on fourth down to try to drain the clock at the end of the game on like the second to last drive the Saints had. But he had 4 catches for 114 yards, 28.5 average, a touchdown, and a long of 87 with 5 targets. And then defense, I think you got to go with Kool-Aid McKinstry, and it was nice seeing him and Quincy Riley out there as your starters and not having to see Ike Yatem anymore. Hopefully he stays on IR or they just cut him because love seeing the young guys out there making plays. So definitely Kool-Aid McKinstry for your defensive player of the game. Had 4 total tackles with 3 solo, 3 pass deflections, and 2 interceptions to finish the game off at the end of the game. So yeah, Kool-Aid McKinstry, hopefully that builds his confidence and he's able to grow on that. And that was something that we were kind of talking about last week was how Jonas Sanker, when he made some pass deflections and his interception in the Bills game, he showed such range, from coming from one side of the field out deep in the secondary and coming all the way over to the other sideline to sideline range and making an interception. Well, on one of the interceptions by Kool-Aid McKinstry, he made a play like that. I think he was covering his man in zone, but then he must have seen Jackson Dart scrambling out of the pocket and looking to make a throw on the run, and he came all the way from one side of the field to the other and undercut it and picked it off. But that was one of those plays where he intercepted it like around the 5-yard line, and the throw was being thrown from like the Saints 30, 35-yard line. So realistically, it would have been better to probably just knock it down. But with how rough Kool-Aid's season has started, I think any little play like that, to pad his stats a little bit and give him more confidence, and hopefully he can grow on it, is good. And it didn't end up affecting the outcome of the game at all. But Kool-Aid McKinstry's stats look a whole lot nicer after just one game. So that was nice. And then player of the game on special teams, I can't give it to anyone. Blake Grupe missed 2 field goals. Craig Kroger shanked 2 punts, and then no one did anything in the return game. So you just have your offensive player of the game, Rashid Shaheed, and your defensive player of the game, Kool-Aid McKinstry. All right, now then, on to hot takes. So my first hot take, I was banking on Jackson Dart being under 150 yards passing in this game because he just barely had like 100, 110 yards in his debut against the Chargers. So I was thinking if the Saints are going to win this game, they have to do something similar to that, really contain him, which I think they did a good job, but they weren't able to keep him under 150. But some of the yards here are just kind of garbage yards at the end of the game because, I mean, he threw it 40 times and completed just 26 of his passes, but was just for like 202 yards. So he had kind of a very Spencer Rattler-ish game in regards to how many times he threw it, and his average was just 5.1 average. But he did have the 2 touchdowns early on to Theo Johnson, where it looked like the Giants were about to run away with it. I thought the game was over at that point. But the big difference is the 2 interceptions. That's something that Spencer Rattler isn't doing. It's turning the ball over really, and then just 1 sack for a loss of 3 yards, but which it should be two if you uh, if you credited credited them with a sack. And I'm seeing on here it's saying that he was sacked for a 3 yard loss, but there's no player on the Saints stats here for ESPN that shows that they had a sack. So that's interesting. I don't know if there's a confusion with the sack and then the penalty, but I don't see that a player on the Saints actually was credited with it, but they're crediting Jackson Dart with being sacked once for a 3 yard loss. And then he has a 50.2 QBR and a 73.1 rating. So Jackson Dart wasn't very impressive. He was more impressive with his legs, where he had 7 carries for 55 yards with a 7.9 average and a long of 20. But bad ball security. Once again, he turned the ball over 3 times. He had the 2 interceptions and then the fumble. But the Giants, they were able to get off on the Saints running the ball. They just didn't have great ball security in this game. They ran the ball for what 136 yards, but they fumbled it 3 times. One of the funny plays here where I just about wanted to go off. I just wanted to swing on Charles Davis a couple times in this game, the announcer, commentator, because on that Cam Scatterboo fumble return for 82 yards and a touchdown on the goal line play by Jordan Howding. Like earlier in that game, they were pointing out how how Cam Scatterboo had like all this like red and orange like debris and stuff on the front of his white jersey and stuff. And they were saying like, oh, well, where would you get that from? You wouldn't get that from because they're playing on turf, so there's no dirt. And they're like, oh, that's from the ball because he's holding it so high and holding it so tight and such good ball security. And then he fumbles it, gets it punched out on the goal line by Brian Brissy. But the thing that made me want to just choke Charles Davis or punch Charles, swing on Charles Davis was as the play was going on and before Jordan Howden made it all the way to the end zone, he was like, he was saying, "Oh, is this play still live? Did they blow the whistle?" And then he waited, paused for a second, and was like, oh, "I think Cam Scatter, I think his knee was down." It's like, dude, if you don't know for fact, don't be saying that stuff because you're killing the excitement of the play that's going on, especially when his knee wasn't down, the whistle wasn't blown, like it wasn't even close to being forward progress stopped or anything. I just wanted to, that had me fired up probably the most in this game. One, off of it being such a crazy, great play that kind of was one of the final blows, like daggers to the Giants, but also just the return, of 82 yards. And I've always kind of been a fan of Jordan Howling, who's kind of been buried on this safety depth chart. But after a couple injuries, and Saints have obviously decent depth at safety, so we finally got to see him again. But I liked Cam Scatterboo coming out. I actually wanted the Saints to draft him. I guess he fell a little bit because he didn't have a great combine, didn't have run a great 40, was only like a 4.6 40 or something like that. So it wasn't showed that he was really fast, but he was a strong, tough runner, but needs to have better ball security, especially against the same like a team like the Saints. But he had 15 carries for 59 yards, which is a 3.9 average, and just a long of 9. But yeah, they were able to rack up some yards on the Saints running. That's definitely where they had their most success. But it was the fumbles that ended up killing them. And then Singletary had 6 carries for 20 yards. So because Jackson Dart threw for more than 150 yards, I guess I can't say that that hot take hit, even though it ended up being even better with him if I would have put in a caveat or an extra that if he turns the ball over 3 times, but I'll take him turning the ball over 3 times over him being under 150 yards passing. But then my other hot take was at least one deep shot to Rashid Shaheed. And I put stipulations on this that it didn't necessarily have to be completed. It definitely didn't have to be a play that he scored on. You just have to attempt it. And we not only got to see it attempted, but we got to see it completed and scored on it. So that was awesome. I'm so happy. And it's like I said, it feels like just a monkey off of our back for this season. You know, finally getting some deep shots downfield and getting the proper use of Rashid Shaheed is nice. And obviously, winning Phil is very nice as well. It makes you kind of forget how much enjoyable it is to watch the other games, the other NFL games during the Sunday and then the Monday and Thursday proceedings, and even the early morning game on Sunday. Watching them coming into those games off of a win is a lot more enjoyable and a lot nicer. So yeah, one of two, hitting on one of two hot takes there, and hitting on a hot take that I'm so glad hit on. Would love to see more of that. Just needs to be like you have to almost uh, a necessity to at least have one or two deep shots to Rashid a game. No matter if you're hitting on them or they're getting intercepted, just gotta do it. Gotta do it. All right, so hot takes weren't too bad. Didn't do great on MVP, but get to pick and score here. So I picked. This is the second time I've actually picked the Saints to win this year, and I think there's a lot of people that probably early on in the season and before the season started, we're looking at the schedules and thinking maybe this would be the first time that the Saints are actually picked to win in a game. And I think with Vegas odds and things like that, they were. But I picked them to beat the injured 49ers, which they weren't able to do. But let's pick them for the second time, and I picked the Saints to actually like control this game kind of from start to finish and not be the team that's having to come back from a large deficit, which the Saints did. They had to come back from a 11-point deficit, double digit points again. But it played out a little bit how I was predicting how the Saints would be in control and at the end of the half, and say that the Giants maybe have one or two drives at the end where they have an opportunity to either take the lead or tie. But it felt it was going to be a more not just a win for the Saints, but kind of comforting up until the end. But I didn't predict the Saints to score more than 20 points just because they haven't done it all year. So that they scored 26 points was nice, and kept the Giants under 17. So I predicted the Saints to win this, but I predicted them to just be a 3-point victory, winning 20-17. But it was nice there for basically the after the first half. After they took the lead in the first half, they just completely dominated the Giants and shut them out. So kind of similar, but we didn't get the heart attack at the end of the game, kind of like I was predicting. I was predicting that the Giants would have the ball a couple times at the end and maybe have opportunity to either tie or take the lead with a touchdown. But luckily, the game was a little more comforting. Besides early on, the first quarter or so, when the Saints looked like they're going to go down by a big deficits and have to be crawling, scratching, and clawing to get back into the game. But having big plays, 50+ yard touchdowns, and scoring on defense can help get back into the game real quick. So it's nice. So the pick the pick the Saints to win, so they won, but didn't get the score absolutely correct. But I prefer being wrong when it plays out like it did. I could get behind 5+ turnovers a game and 10-point plus wins every week by the Saints, which we know we definitely know defensive touchdowns and 80 plus yard offensive touchdowns. Like that kind of stuff's not going to happen every week, but it coming up and being a little more common than it has been after the 8-9 game losing streak going back to last season. Definitely make it even more enjoyable on top of getting to see the growth of so many young players and up and coming players. So I like it. So that's the Saints. That's the Saints 26-14 victory over the New York Giants last Sunday, and that's places them at 1-4. Still probably not a lot of hope in regards to making the playoffs or winning their division or anything, but I will say I have enjoyed this season. It's just they're fun to watch. They're a fun team to watch. There's always drama or something crazy going on in a game, or you're seeing a young player make a play and seeing improvements from young players. Like really, the only game that wasn't an enjoyment to watch was obviously the Seahawks game in Seattle that was out of hand within like the first 5 minutes of the game. The game was literally over. I was talking to my buddy who's a Raiders fan, which they lost like 40-3. When it was 14-3, I was saying it was over, and he responded back that the Raiders game was over. Thankfully, the Saints continued to play, unlike the uh, Geno Smith led Raiders, and they were able to show some heart and some resiliency, and you got some fire, and you got some elite defense uh, in the second half by the Saints. So very very enjoyable and fun game to watch. So that's the Saints 26 26-14 win over the Giants this past Sunday. So now the only other thing, got a couple other news and notes here. We mentioned not having to see Ike Yadam and not having to risk the Saints' fourth round comp pick with him playing 33.333% of the snaps. So him being injured, I think he was placed on IR. Not sure if that's designated to come back, but I'm perfectly fine with him not coming back. But the Saints have gone out and signed a veteran, a comparable veteran cornerback to replace him in Michael Davis. And Michael Davis is a veteran cornerback who's played in 70, has started 76 games, and has played most of his career with the Los Angeles Chargers, while Brandon Staley was either the defensive coordinator or the head coach. So he's got more familiarity with Brandon Staley, and just I really doubt there's going to be a huge drop off in play uh, from Ike Yadam to Michael Davis. But hopefully we won't have to see a lot of him. Hopefully we get what we're seeing from the three starting defensive backs. We get the two outside guys and Kool-Aid, Quincy Riley, and then your nickel dime and Alante Taylor. Hopefully we don't have to see much of Michael Davis and don't have to see any of Ike Yadam if and when he comes back from injury, because I'm good with the young guys out there making plays, and it's securing our fourth round comp pick, which I find that we could probably find a better DB defensive back in the 2026 draft than Ike Yadam with that fourth round pick. So I'm good with that. And then just kind of an odd, but not surprised or upset about it cut, but he had been the last 2 or 3 weeks or so. The kickoffs returns have been kind of mostly been handed over to Velais Jones, because early in the season, Kendra Miller was returning them too, even though Kendra Miller did have one return for 18 yards in this game. But it seemed like they were trying to filter or funnel the returns to Velais Jones more, which I am kind of a fan of that, especially if Kendra Miller is going to be getting more offensive touches and snaps. I don't really like risking your one B running back doing kickoff returns, and kind of feel the same way. I don't really care to see possibly your best wide receiver, Rashid Shaheed, who's coming back from a knee injury. Don't care to see him really on returns either, even though the majority of punt returns this year have been Rashid Shaheed. But I don't really care to see him back on kick returns either. But same with not wanting to see Kendra Miller. So it's just a little odd that they cut Velais Jones Jr. because I felt that he was not doing like great or having like any exciting returns or anything, but he wasn't making any big mistakes either. But that was definitely one thing I hated about this Giants game was how bad the Saints coverage team was and how like every drive the Giants had was starting like at the 35 at their 35 or more or better, and the Saints were like at the 15 or maybe at best their own 20 yard line or slightly better. But anyways, that's about it for the Saints. So I guess the Saints' next game is against the Patriots, and I heard someone say that that's a home game. But for some reason, I thought that game was on the road. But I guess it is a home game. So that'll be a home game Sunday, October 12th at 12 Central, 1 p.m. Eastern time, and that'll be the Patriots coming off of a big victory over division rivals in the Buffalo Bills, who the Saints felt like at times maybe had on the ropes 2 weeks ago. So the New England Patriots will be coming in here riding high, but I don't really look at the Patriots as like a great team. Like I don't look at them as if they're as good as the Seahawks or they're as good as the Bills or they're as good of a good as even just the injured 49ers are a good team. What they're 4-1 with Mac Jones. So besides the Seahawks, I don't see why the Saints, just like every other game that the Saints have had this year, and it being in New Orleans, I don't see why the Saints won't be able to stick and stay right in that game with the Patriots. So I'm excited about that. And like I said earlier, the only thing that could make like this season feel whole and we're getting what we expected and what we paid for is the team that we saw last week, but with getting Foster Monroe and Taysom Hill back, which is so exciting and adds so much, feels like it adds so much life to the team, but to the fans as well, the Houdats as well. But give me Chase Young, the guy we paid what 18 million per what was it, like 4 years, 70 million or something like that. Like give me Chase Young. Add a Chase Young sack to next week, and I think Saints fans will finally feel whole. And are getting what they expected and what they paid for. But anyways, I think that's about all I have for you this evening. So can I get a check, please? And who dat? And can I get a check, please?